Artificial intelligence is getting scary good at making artwork, good enough to pass for humans in some cases. Platforms like Midjourney, Lensa, and DALL-E allow humans to turn a handful of keywords into a staggeringly specific, surreal work of art. Computer algorithms can now transform your selfies, create gorgeous digital landscape paintings, or depict a wide array of realistic-looking people with slightly too many fingers for comfort. But behind the curtains of this new technology are billions of artistic images scraped off of the web, and the artists who created those images, in a lot of cases, aren't happy with how the robots are using their work. The rise of AI artwork has sparked organized protests and divided art communities, as artists try to assert some measure of control over the new technology. As artificial intelligence becomes more prevalent across a wide range of industries, the fight over AI art could shape the future of this groundbreaking tech, and the limits we place around it.
I found out because my friend messaged me and he said, like, hey, I don't know if you noticed, but someone is using your stuff as an AI art model and they won't tell anybody who it is. Like, they're hiding it.
Deb J.J. Lee is a freelance illustrator and graphic novelist whose work has appeared in several prominent publications. In December 2022, they were alerted to a post of some AI artwork which bore a striking resemblance to their own work. The user later deleted that post after being confronted, but the AI model used to produce that work is still out in the wild. Lee doesn't know who else has access to the model, or if someone will try to replicate their art again.
It was just devastating, because my work takes a long time to do, and if you're just like taking stuff and just putting it into a machine and it just spits out ones and zeros, like that's just insulting.
Lee isn't alone. Tons of artists have found their work mimicked by AI generators without their knowledge or consent. For these artists, AI artwork is starting to look a lot like theft, and a potential threat to their job opportunities. Illustration is traditionally a very bespoke practice. An artist gets a specific idea or prompt and spends hours sketching, outlining, coloring, and shading their work until it's finished. Artists spend hundreds or thousands of hours on practice and experimentation to improve their technique. And better techniques lead to paid commissions, project work, and other jobs artists can use to support themselves. AI, by contrast, can't come up with ideas on its own. It must be handed a series of keywords by a human. Once that's done, the AI digs through its database of billions of images, finds the elements that line up with the keywords, and synthesizes them into a finished work. Better AI art doesn't come through practice, but machine learning. A human or artificial appraiser tells the AI what art works and what doesn't, and it updates its parameters accordingly. This method can lead to some stunning results, but AI artwork is only as good as the datasets it's looking at. If an algorithm is trained on a specific artist or style, it can sometimes feel like it's indirectly copying that artist's work. Major AI art platforms rely on the broad collection of artwork posted from around the internet, which left many artists caught off guard with how their work was being used. Now, many artists are protesting the rise of AI artwork, pressuring platforms to ban its use, and responding with protest art of their own.
They just decided to steal our work without asking, which I find insane. You can see the problems rising already. You can see that some art is almost like basically copied.
Eva Toredent is a published illustrator from the Netherlands, who's recently been speaking out about her issues with AI artwork.
Without the work of real artists, there can't be AI art. The more art the database has, the better the AI art.
She's one of many artists opposing how AI technology is creating artwork out of artists' copyrighted material without their consent. To make the best artwork, AI programs rely on datasets like Lion5B, an index of 5.85 billion images tagged to be understandable by machine learning programs. Scraping that many images from around the web is a fundamentally imprecise art. Users have found medical photos, pornography, and of course copyrighted artwork in the dataset. Lion5B dodges copyright claims by not actually hosting the artwork it scrapes, but major for-profit AI art generators like Stable Diffusion rely on it to track down the best artwork to train their algorithms.
The most popular art right now on those image generators are from a live artist that have copyright. So they just decided to take it.
There's not much legal clarity when it comes to copyright issues and AI artwork. It's kind of an open question whether a machine learning from man-made work is a process that's more akin to copying or inspiration. But for Torenant and other artists, the issue is clear. These machines can and should be making artwork without their copyrighted images.
You build a house out of stolen bricks, and people want their bricks back, and you are left without a house. That's your fault. That is not the fault of the artist. We are not against AI as a whole. We just want it to be done ethically.
Pushback from artists hasn't stopped this new wave of AI art from going mainstream. It's already showing up in book covers, magazine articles, and even fine art competitions. As with any new technology, people are going to be inclined to see how far they can push the envelope.
So with all this new AI stuff, I'm like, okay, let me see what's out there. I saw what was out there. I had an idea one day and I just ran with it.
Dennis DeRobertis is a children's book author who previously published a series of human illustrated titles. His latest work, If Animals Had Jobs, goes a different route. It uses illustrations from AI art platform DALL-E 2. While each of the illustrations is a little off, the pictures manage to maintain similar style and consistency throughout the book, getting close-ish to the pictures you might find in a conventional children's book. DeRobertis says the process, while still limited, enabled him to prototype and iterate his ideas for a lot less time and money.
Doing a book, a 32-page book, you're talking thousands of dollars, potentially. Or the simpler books, like If Animals Had Jobs, that I could just do all on my own.
The book has received pushback from people opposed to the use of AI art on principle. DeRobertis says he was careful not to include specific artists in his prompts to avoid duplicating someone else's work.
AI stuff isn't using a person's artwork. It's smarter than that, right? So the algorithms know this is the concept, the meaning. Here are the semantics behind it, and here is the final artwork we'll give you. I think they'll be responsible enough. I don't see them wanting to offend the very artists that they use as inspiration and content to create AI-generated art.
Artificial intelligence is still not a perfect stand-in for a human artist. You can't collaborate with it or demand consistency from it in the same way. But DeRobertis says the experience went well enough that he's planning to use AI illustrations in future projects, along with human artists as well.
Just personally see how it works, see what kind of stories I can tell with it, and I think there's going to be a mix going forward.
Artificial intelligence hasn't just kept to the art world. AI works have been popping up in other fields, from movies to writing to music. And while the algorithms are getting pretty close to mimicking human behavior, there's been some pretty strange detours along the way.
It's who and holy deity went down to earth with human flesh for sacrifice.
That was the brainchild of Janelle Shane, a research scientist and a writer who's been coming up with bizarre and funny AI generations for her blog, AI Weirdness, since 2016.
When I started out with smaller algorithms, I was providing all the training data myself. I did have complete control and I could make sort of limited things. Now we have these big text generators that have some internet training to start with. So they have a lot more memory, they have a lot more virtual neurons, and they are making use of a lot more training data.
Mass data gathering operations have helped algorithms automate a number of human chores in some surprising ways. We used AI-based transcription software for the interviews for this piece, for example. But the new capabilities of AI technology often obscure the human sources that are inadvertently powering it with their data.
If you look at something like Google as a search function or translation functions, they've just been scraped from the internet from a lot of people who probably don't know that their data is in these algorithms training data.
For artists, websites that were once safe places to post their work have become targets for data scraping. There's a reason that art-sharing website ArtStation shows up in so many AI generation prompts. Some of these sites have become targeted by artistic protests, flooded with anti-AI images to force the platform to act against AI art. The worry is that in gathering up all this data from working artists, algorithms will learn how to be good enough to serve as cheap stand-ins for certain types of man-made illustration. AI art is already starting to replace human creators for certain jobs.
It is cheaper. It is easier if you don't care what it looks like and you don't care who gets paid. And so I think it's important to be vocal about what's acceptable when it comes to people presenting us with art.
The fight over AI artwork is bigger than just artists. It could end up affecting how AI companies are able to collect and use data from across the internet. The issue's become big enough that artists have started to rally behind collective movements.
This idea that AI companies or tech companies in general are able to just take whatever data they want just because it's online, it will be a bigger issue than creative people wanting to protect the rights to their work.
Rachel Meinerding is the co-founder of the Concept Art Association, an organization originally created to recognize artists that illustrate inspirational images for movies, television, and video games. The association is currently spearheading the Support Human Artists campaign, focused on raising money to lobby for regulatory change about how AI is used in creative industries. Illustration is hardly the first field to face the threat of AI automation, but the reliance of AI art on the work of human artists could give the industry more of a say in how this tech develops. The cause has attracted a lot of support from an industry that hasn't had the same sort of regulatory muscle as other creative firms.
Visual artists typically, historically, haven't had like an organizational power behind them because they're all individuals. So I think it's kind of amazing and beautiful what we're seeing right now with the artist community kind of banding together to be like, hey, I might just be one artist, but collectively we're a huge voice.
Most artists realize that calling for an end to AI development isn't realistic. Instead, they're asking for more control over how their data is used for AI projects, restricting commercial models to open source or opt-in images. These restrictions would make it tougher for AI platforms to create high-quality art, but it'd allow artists to post their art online without worrying about it showing up in an algorithm.
Artists so heavily rely on these portfolio sites and Instagram for passive recruiting.
For years, all of us artists have been putting art on the internet so that we could get jobs, because that's how the job market is these days. We had no idea we were being scraped and our art was being collected to train this thing that was going to, that they're trying to use to replace us.
John Lamb is a storyboard artist at Riot Games and organized the Create Don't Scrape hashtag to protest AI art.
Artists would never ask for permission to be fed into these machines. We were never given any sort of agreement or percentage. And now the makers of these programs are trying to enter our industry, trying to replace us with the data that we unknowingly provided.
Lamb and other artists have been critical of some of the measures AI platforms have taken to appease artists, like creating opt-out forms to exempt them from training data.
That's a company placing the responsibility that should have been on them onto the people who are being affected. I feel that that's unfair. And I feel like if you were planning on monetizing to begin with, everybody should have been made aware of what was happening.
Ultimately, the responsibility for better data curation falls on AI developers. Without strictly pruning the data AI learns from, these algorithms often fall into the worst patterns of human behavior.
The reason we're in this mess right now is because it was not curated and nothing was regulated and everything was just a free-for-all on the internet. So restart this thing ethically from the word go.
It's hard to say where the AI art fight goes from here. A lot depends not just on the technology, but on the cultural and regulatory framework that surrounds it. Right now, AI artwork is on track to get even better and more realistic in the future. That ability rests on the human artists that are powering the algorithms with their labor. Whether those artists get a say in how their work is used in AI art could determine where the technology goes in the years to come.